Orcs Must Die released in October 2011. In fact, it was almost the same exact date that Dungeon Defenders released, which is kind of a weird coincidence. I mean, since they're both very similar, but they're very different at the same time. But they're basically the same genre and same concept, just taken in different directions. Now, I played Dungeon Defenders when it first came out, and I really enjoyed that game, but it is quite a different experience than Orcs Must Die. I feel like Dungeon Defenders is just a bit different because you actually have like different equipment and weapons that you can get, which well, I mean, Orcs Must Die has different weapons, but you know what I mean. There's like a looting system in Dungeon Defenders, and you take out enemies and they actually drop loot that you can pick up and change your equipment with. But it is quite a different experience than Orcs Must Die. I only say that because I just find it weird that two games in same competing genres released at almost the exact same time. But even with that, both of these games seemed to do very well on their own when they released. Now, some of you might know that I recently reviewed Orcs Must Die Death Trap, and in there I said I thought the game was good, it was decent, but I couldn't compare it to the previous games because I haven't played them, so it'd be unfair to, well, compare it and say it's better than the previous games or it's worse than the previous games if I haven't played the previous games. So I decided, why not check out all the previous games? So no better place to start than the first game. So let's take a look back and see what made Orcs Must Die so good and so well liked. Most tower defense games are top-down, which give you a bird's eye view of the battlefield, where you place your defenses and watch waves of enemies try to break through it. Instead, in Orcs Must Die, you are playing in third person and can actively participate in the defense yourself. The War Mage, or Maximilian, the character that you play as, has a crossbow for long-range headshots, a sword for up-close combat, and you can equip some spells that you can use, such as the Fire one, which shoots fireballs, obviously, and then there's one that's like wind, and you can blow a bunch of orcs into a pit of acid or lava or just wherever you want to blow them. There is this balance of planning and execution that kept every level fresh, and you had to think ahead, setting up traps and changing the way that the enemy tries to navigate the level. There might be multiple ways that the enemy could get to the rift, and you can use barricades to block some of the paths and make them take a longer route through more traps. Or you could do what I accidentally did, and sometimes you could help the orcs actually just get to the rift. Like, why take them out and win when you can just fling them right into your rift with some spring traps? Yeah, I did that on accident. I don't know how, but I did it.
You go first. Which way go?
Here they come.
The heart of Orcs Must Die, and the thing that really set itself apart from Dungeon Defenders, was its traps. Orcs Must Die took a different approach where it's not about the characters that have their own sets of weapons and what they can do. It's you play your character and you can switch out your weapons for different weapons, and you have your main weapon, but you also have a wide range of traps, way more traps than Dungeon Defenders has. Right from the start of the game, you got access to basic but effective tools like spike traps, wall arrows, and tar pits. It's simple, but as you progress, the game will give you an arsenal of mayhem. And you can also upgrade the traps to make them stronger. Now, it doesn't have as many upgrades as some of the later games in the franchise, but they each have their own upgrade. Do you want to launch orcs into lava or not waste any time and just send them right into your rift? Then you can use the spring trap. Do you want to roast them alive? Then you can use the floor burner. Do you want to slice them up? Well, then you can use one of my personal favorite traps, wall blades, which somehow I feel is more satisfying in this game compared to any of the other Orcs Must Die games. I don't know why, but it just seems to be more satisfying in this game. And also, yeah, I know what you're thinking. Wow, those are some really creative names for traps. But the best part of Orcs Must Die, in my opinion, is combining traps. A tar pit slows down enemies just in time for a trap to reset and slice them into pieces, or an arrow wall to reset and shoot some more arrows. A wind belt pushes them into acid or lava pits. Every trap worked together, and it kind of made the levels feel like some sort of puzzle waiting to be solved. Of course, with extreme violence and orc body parts flying around.
And defended dozens of rifts.
One thing Orcs Must Die could have done a little bit better was its progression system. Every level rewarded you with a new trap to play with, which was cool, it was nice, but I think it would have been better if each trap had 3 levels of upgrades. It didn't have to have separate paths, but if it had 3 levels of upgrades instead of just 1, I think it would have just made it just a little bit better. There were also Weaver upgrades that you spent coins on during a level, which could give you benefits like earning more money, which one of the first upgrades in the Weaver trap is 60% or 66% more gold every time your trap takes out an orc, which is pretty nice. Or you can increase your damage dealt, which is also pretty nice and useful. The progression system that was there and the fact that you did get a new trap every single level did open up for new strategies every time you progressed, making each level feel fresh and giving you more reasons to replay the past levels and missions so you can use the new equipment and traps to find a new way to beat the level. Orcs Must Die gave you well-designed levels that forced you to strategize. Some levels had tight hallways where choke points were easy to defend, other had massive open spaces where the pathway wasn't exactly clear because there was no hallways, it was just a giant open space and you had to use barricades to make your own pathways where you wanted the orcs to go and where you wanted the orcs to try to attack from. You also had where most of the later levels, orcs attacked you from multiple directions, and sometimes you could combine paths to where you could make 2 paths, 1 path, so you only had to defend that one direction instead of both of those directions. But there were a lot of times where you had multiple paths and you had to defend from multiple directions all at the same time and make sure no one got into the rift. And there's even sometimes where you have to defend multiple directions and multiple rifts, which made things more challenging. Orcs Must Die could be challenging on higher difficulties in some of the later levels where you had to defend multiple rifts or multiple directions, but it was never unfair. As the game progressed, it introduced stronger enemies. Early waves were full of slow, weak orcs that really weren't that difficult to take out, but soon you had armored orcs, fast runners, ogres that shrugged off traps, and flying enemies that forced you to rethink your strategies. But the game never felt cheap. If you failed, it was because your trap setup wasn't efficient enough or you weren't managing enemies properly. Every loss was your fault, as it never did anything cheap like spawning enemies randomly without telling you that they could even spawn from over there, like the third game in the franchise seems to do in multiple levels. Another thing that set Orcs Must Die apart was its personality. The War Mage wasn't your typical hero. He was an overconfident, sarcastic, and constantly cracking jokes. He treated the orc invasion like a fun inconvenience rather than an apocalypse or something to be feared. And the orcs themselves, well, they're pretty much brainless. They scream one-liners, get launched into the abyss with dramatic yells, and they flail around in the most ridiculous ways when killed. That is, if they're not chopped to bits or burnt to a crisp. Basically, the game never took itself too seriously, and that made the experience much more fun. In fact, I think that's one of the biggest reasons that this game actually did so well, because they focused on making a fun, enjoyable game. Just a game to have fun and laugh, which seems to be forgotten nowadays in a lot of games. The making a game fun before anything else. That's the part that's missing nowadays. Orcs Must Die was a huge success, spawning sequels that added co-op, more traps, and new mechanics. But for many fans, the first game remained special. It was simple, yet perfectly executed, had fast-paced action, deep strategy, decent progression, and a fantastic sense of humor. And even now, so many years later, Orcs Must Die is still just as fun as it was back in 2011. So if you haven't played it yet, do yourself a favor, go back and experience it, because some games age but they never get old. Anyways, that's going to be it for this video, so I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, make sure to hit that like button. Leave a comment below, tell me what you think about Orcs Must Die and this video. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button because you want to be subscribed, and I'll see you next time.